The county weather board still says winter storm warning, and that is the part I keep reading, because it is the one piece of news that sounds normal. I am sitting in Studio B with my coat on, 2 pairs of socks under my boots, and a paper cup of coffee that went cold before I remembered it existed. The main studio heater has been off for 20 minutes because the maintenance panel on the wall started making a dry clicking sound, and Victor from engineering told me not to touch it until he checks the breaker. I have my hand on the microphone switch. The clock above the glass shows 6:12 a.m., and outside the east window the parking lot is covered in new snow. No fresh tire tracks, no footprints except ours. For the first time in a month, that feels almost good. This is WNBR 91.7, serving Benton, Logan, Armitage, Pike, and the South Ridge communities. I say it in the same voice I used before everything went bad, because people still need that. The National Weather Service relay is delayed, but the last confirmed reading at Benton Municipal Airport was 12 degrees Fahrenheit, wind from the northwest at 18 miles per hour, with gusts near 30. Snow accumulation overnight is between 5 and 9 inches depending on elevation. County Route 17 is closed at the Mill Bridge. County Route 6 is blocked north of Hasker Farm Road by abandoned vehicles and drifting snow. Sheriff Dane asks residents not to attempt travel unless it is a medical emergency, fire emergency, or confirmed evacuation order. If you are sheltering in place, conserve heat, check vents, and do not run a generator indoors or inside an attached garage. I pause after that because I almost add the old line about checking on elderly neighbors, and the words stay in my mouth. Nobody says that casually anymore. Checking on a neighbor now means standing on a porch with a flashlight and a tool in your hand, calling through a door, trying to decide if the sound inside is a person crying or one of the infected scraping against furniture. It means looking at tracks in the snow and not knowing which direction matters. Still, I read the notice. Keep phone calls short distance when possible. If you have power, charge medical devices first. If you have firewood, report excess supply to township coordinators only if you can move it safely. The Red School Warming Shelter in North Barron is open for families with children under 12, seniors, and anyone with no safe heat. Bring blankets, bring medicine. No pets except service animals. When I finish the list, I lift my finger from the switch and look at Victor through the glass. He is on one knee at the wall panel with a screwdriver in his teeth and a flashlight tucked under his chin. His gray hair is sticking out from under a knit cap. He points at the ceiling, which means keep talking, keep the feed alive, do not let the dead air settle. I put the microphone back on and read the school closings, even though no school has opened since October. People still listen for familiar words. Benton Unified is closed. Pike Valley is closed. St. Agnes Academy is closed. The library warming room is closed due to a plumbing failure. Logan County Mobile Pantry postponed. Livestock auction postponed. Blood drive postponed. Everything postponed. Everything waiting for a safer day that has not shown up. At 6:24 a.m., Sheriff Dane comes in over the phone bridge. The line has a scratch in it and a half-second delay that makes him sound farther away than he is. He tells me the cold slowed them down. He does not say infected at first. He says the exposed individuals, because the state emergency script still uses that phrase. He tells me 3 were found upright along the fence near the fairground, frozen in place hard enough that the deputies walked around them, marked the fence with orange tape, and left them outside. 1 was halfway through the ditch by the church on 8th Street, knees locked in ice, arms still raised toward the road. Dane says no deputy approached within 10 feet. He repeats that for me to broadcast. Do not approach. Do not assume deceased. Do not attempt removal. Mark location from a distance and report when safe. I ask him if that means the cold is helping. The question comes out before I decide whether it is responsible. He is quiet long enough for me to hear his vehicle fan blowing. Then he says yes, the cold is helping movement control. That is all he will say. He asks me to read the advisory twice. The infected are slower in cold. The infected may become immobilized in freezing conditions. An immobilized infected person remains dangerous. Avoid contact with saliva, blood, open wounds, and exposed teeth. Do not bring an immobilized infected person indoors. Do not attempt medical care without trained protective staff. Report locations to township authorities by radio, phone, or written note at marked drop boxes. I read it twice. I keep my voice flat and useful. I do not let hope into it. Hope got people hurt last month when the first state map showed fewer red zones in our county, and every cousin with a truck thought rural meant safe. Still, after the second reading, the phone board lights up, not all at once. One light from Pike, two from Logan, a blinking old landline from somewhere west of Armitage where the copper still works when the wind allows it. The first caller is Mrs. Beller from Orchard Road. She says her husband went out at dawn and saw one of them frozen against the cattle gate. It did not turn when he called. It did not follow. It only moved its jaw once. She asks if she can use the tractor to push it away from the gate. I tell her no. I tell her to stay inside, keep people and animals away from the gate, and mark the window facing the road with a white towel so the plow crew knows someone is alive inside. I do not mention that plow crews have already skipped Orchard Road twice. I write her address on the log sheet and pass it through the cracked studio door to Victor, who takes it without looking up. The next caller is a man named Eddie, no last name, south of Mill Hollow. He sounds almost cheerful. He says winter finally did what the state could not. He says he counted 8 frozen in the soybean field behind his place, everyone stuck in crusted snow. He says if this holds, folks could clear the county by Sunday. I tell him not to try. He laughs once and says he has a splitting maul and 2 grown sons. I turn off the microphone for 1 second and say his name sharply, because sometimes a direct voice gets through better than official language. Eddie, leave them outside. Leave them alone. He stops laughing. In the background, I hear a dog barking and a woman telling somebody not to open the mudroom door. Eddie says, fine, message received. He hangs up before I can get his address. I mark Mill Hollow, unknown farm, possible exposure risk. My handwriting has gotten worse since November. Too many notes, too many names that never call back. By 7 a.m., the optimism spreads anyway. I hear it in callers, in the sheriff's dispatcher, in the clipped voice of the county commissioner who calls from a borrowed satellite handset and asks if we can lead with the phrase significant winter advantage. I say no on air and softer off air. He does not like that. He says morale matters. I tell him accuracy matters too. He says people need something to hold on to. I say people also need fingers, eyes, and unbitten hands. He breathes through his nose, then gives me the official shelter list. Red School, East Gym Door, St. Luke's Basement Hall, Old Fire Station in Briar Gap, generator supported. United Methodist Fellowship Room in Logan Center, limited capacity. Benton Bus Garage for stranded drivers only. That bus garage notice is the first thing that feels wrong. Although I do not know why yet, it sits in my head while I read fuel conservation instructions and carbon monoxide warnings. Keep generators at least 20 feet from windows and doors. Keep exhaust pointed away from occupied areas. Clear snow around vents. Do not burn charcoal indoors. Do not use a gas oven for heat. The list is painfully ordinary. Before the infection, we read the same warnings every winter, and people ignored half of them. Now every bad choice has teeth around it. A generator can keep insulin cold, keep a baby warm, keep a radio charged, and pull every infected body within earshot if the sound travels across frozen fields. At 7:43 a.m., Benton Public Works reports plow driver missing. His name is not given on air yet, but I know it is Carl Mendez because Carl always calls during storms to complain about people leaving trash bins near the curb. His truck was last seen on Ridge Road near the county salt dome. The radio check came in at 6:58. He reported 3 frozen infected in the road shoulder and 1 walking slow near a mailbox. At 7:20, he missed his next check. At 7:36, another driver found the plow idling. Blade down, driver door open, heater running high. No blood report. No body in the cab. Tracks around the truck were confused by blowing snow and tire churn, but there were drag marks leading toward the ditch and several narrow footpaths coming from the tree line. I read the travel closure with Carl's name left out. My mouth feels stiff from the cold air in the studio. Victor finally gets the heater panel open, swears under his breath, and tells me the blower motor is dead unless we cannibalize the one from the lobby unit. I tell him to do it. He says the lobby unit is the only heat keeping the front pipes from freezing. We both look toward the front hall, where 2 5-gallon buckets sit under the bathroom sink because the drain already cracked in one place. The station was built in the 70s, low and ugly and cheap, with cinder block walls and a flat roof that holds snow until somebody shovels it. We used to joke that it could survive anything except a budget meeting. Now it is a county relay because it has a tower, a backup transmitter, and one engineer too stubborn to leave. At 8:15 a.m., callers start reporting chimneys, not fires. Chimneys. A woman near East Pike says 4 infected stood under her wood stove pipe through most of the night. Faces turned up, hands moving against the siding. She could not hear them over the wind. Her son saw them at dawn when he went to bring in wood. She shut the stove damper because she thought smoke might be drawing them. Then the house started filling with smoke and she had to open it again. A man on Old Quarry Lane says he ran his fireplace for the first time in 3 days, and 2 frozen infected at the back of his property began moving again. Slowly, no coordination, but toward the house, always toward the warm wall. I do not say pattern, I say unconfirmed reports. We have unconfirmed reports of infected individuals gathering near exterior vents, chimneys, and heat exhaust. Residents should remain indoors, avoid unnecessary noise, keep curtains closed, and report repeated movement toward heated structures. Do not extinguish necessary heat if doing so creates immediate danger to household members. Use caution when accessing firewood. Bring wood in before dark if safe. Keep doors secured while moving wood. I hate that advice because it solves one danger and feeds another. I can hear my own hesitation. Someone listening will hear it too. At 8:40, the Red School shelter calls. The voice is Principal Moran, although there are no students now, not in the old way. She is running triage with 2 retired nurses, 1 volunteer firefighter with a sprained wrist, and a cafeteria manager who knows every family in North Barron. She says there are 82 people in the gym, including 7 Titan children and 9 seniors who cannot be moved easily. Heat is working from the boiler room. Generator is outside behind the kitchen, fenced, loud, and giving them lights in the halls. Since dawn, infected have been gathering near the loading dock and the boiler wall. Most appear slow. Some are frozen at the edge of the plowed lot. 1 fresh one came out of a drainage cut and moved faster until it hit the open wind. She asks if I can tell people not to come unless shelter is life or death. I ask how many are outside. She says 12 visible, maybe more behind the kitchen side. I ask if law enforcement is there. She says 1 deputy left to escort a family and has not come back. I ask if she can shut the generator down. She says not without losing heat controls, lights, and the outlet strip running oxygen equipment for Mr. Havel. She says this quietly, away from the gym noise, and then she asks me if the cold is supposed to save them. It is not accusation, it is worse. It is a person realizing the public message is behind the real situation by about 3 hours. I tell her I will update the advisory. I do not tell her I know less than she does. I put her on hold and call Sheriff Dane's Bridge Bussy. I call County Emergency Management Bussy. I call the state desk number we are supposed to use for verified outbreak guidance. It rings 12 times and drops. I call the Fire Mutual Aid channel through the station patch. Victor listens with one side of his headset and shakes his head. Too much traffic, too many stations stepping over each other. Briar Gap reports warming center crowding at the old fire station. Hasker Township reports frozen hydrants. Logan Center reports no ambulance service north of the river. A man keeps saying he has a child with a fever and no fuel. Nobody answers him directly. At 9:04 a.m. I revise the advisory on my own. I say it clearly and I say who it comes from. This is a station-level safety update based on repeated county reports, not yet confirmed by state health authorities. We are receiving multiple reports that infected individuals may orient toward heat sources or heat exhaust in freezing weather. This may include chimneys, generator exhaust, boiler rooms, vehicle heaters, livestock barns, laundromats, fire stations, and crowded shelters. Do not shut off life-sustaining heat unless you have a safe alternative. Do not move into a public shelter unless your current location cannot be heated safely. If you operate a generator, keep it outside for carbon monoxide safety, but place it away from sleeping areas and main entrances if possible. Block light at windows. Watch snow tracks near warm exterior walls. The backlash starts before I finish the second reading. Commissioner Halpern calls and says I am creating panic. I keep him off air. He says people will freeze because of me. I tell him people will also walk into shelters that may already be surrounded because of him. He says I am not a doctor. I say no. I am the person people can still hear. That stops him for a second. Then he tells me to use official language only. I ask him for official language that includes chimneys. He does not have any. He says he will call back. He does not. Victor brings me a space heater from the prize closet. The little ceramic one we used to give away during Pledge Week when the hardware store sponsored Winter Safety Month. He sets it under the console and does not plug it in. We look at the orange coil behind the grill, both thinking the same thing. Heat inside the broadcast room, warm wall electrical smell, a small comfort that might make us stupid. He carries it back out without a word. I keep my gloves on and use a pencil because my fingers do not want to work the touchscreen. The phone board keeps blinking. Every light is somebody cold, trapped, angry, or late to understanding. By 10 a.m., the snow slows and the sky brightens without giving heat. Divisvitas improves to about a quarter mile across the station lot. Through the east window I can see the tower fence, the buried line to the generator shed, and the low bank of plowed snow where Victor cleared a path yesterday. The generator shed is 50 yards from the building, farther than code required, because Victor moved it years ago after a raccoon got into the old unit and knocked us off during a thunderstorm. We used to complain about walking out there in bad weather. Now that distance feels useful. Its exhaust pipe points toward the drainage field. Its sound is low, steady, and easy to hate. A caller from the highway department says Carl Mendez has been found. He is alive, injured, and cold enough that the medic on the radio sounds more worried about temperature than infection. No bite seen, scrapes on one hand, torn coat, possible shoulder injury. He says Carl crawled into a culvert after something pulled him from the cab. The infected that dragged him slowed in the ditch, then froze around the culvert mouth because runoff had iced over. Carl stayed inside the pipe for nearly 2 hours while his plow idled 30 yards away with the heater blasting. He told the rescue crew that more kept arriving at the truck, not at him. He said the cab was empty and warm and they pressed against it until the glass cracked. I asked permission to air the lesson without his name. Permission comes back through 3 people and 1 bad connection. I read it. A running vehicle may attract infected in freezing conditions. Do not leave engines idling near shelters, homes, barns, or rescue points unless medically necessary. If a vehicle must be used as heat, assign a watch and park away from entrances when possible. Clear exhaust to prevent carbon monoxide buildup. Do not sleep in a running vehicle without a watch. Do not assume cold weather makes outdoor rescue safe. At 10:37 a.m., St. Luke's basement shelter closes to new arrivals. The official reason is capacity. The real reason comes from Sister Agnes on a kitchen phone with a cord stretched into the hallway. She says infected are gathered at the laundry vent. She says the dryer has been running all morning because children came in soaked from a ditch crossing and every blanket in the place is wet. She says 5 infected stood outside the vent and did not move when the men inside banged pans against the basement windows. 1 turned only when the dryer stopped. When the dryer started again, it returned to the vent. She says this with the calm of a woman who has lived long enough to know panic is a waste of breath. Then her voice breaks once when she says one of the infected outside is wearing a St. Luke's choir coat. I do not put that detail on air. I say laundry exhaust may draw infected. Use dryers only when necessary. Vent heat away from occupied entrances if possible. Dry clothing in interior rooms only if ventilation remains safe and carbon monoxide sources are not present. That advice is messy and incomplete, but survival advice is not clean anymore. The old public safety language assumed roads, staff, power, hospitals, and time. Now every instruction has a hole in it. Keep doors closed but ventilate. Stay warm but hide heat. Do not travel but do not remain where pipes burst and the stove fails. Rort hazards but save batteries. Help neighbors but do not open doors to unknown sounds. Near 11 a.m., a pickup pulls into the station lot. Victor sees it first and taps the glass. The truck comes from the north access road, nose pushing through snow, 1 headlight out, exhaust hanging low in the cold air. It stops near the front door instead of the side service entrance. I turn the microphone off and pick up the short-handled shovel we keep by the desk. Victor takes the pry bar from the engineering closet. We do not own hero weapons here. We have tools, 2 cans of wasp spray, a locked cabinet with old remote broadcast gear. and one county-issued sidearm that Sheriff Dane left with Victor after the second break-in. Victor has it in his coat pocket, but I know he hates that it is there. The driver gets out with both hands raised. He is maybe 30, beard iced at the edges, cheeks raw from wind. A woman is in the passenger seat with a blanket around her shoulders. A child sits between them, small enough that only a pink hat shows above the dash. I open the inner door but not the outer one. The man says his name is Nolan Frey, from Briar Gap. He says the fire station warming center is surrounded. He says people are still inside. He says the generator behind the station pulled infected down Main Street from both directions after sunrise, and nobody believed it until the first window broke in the apparatus bay. He says he left because his daughter's inhaler was empty, and his wife remembered hearing on our broadcast that the Red School had nurses. I tell him Red School is not safe for new arrivals. He stares at me through the glass. The woman closes her eyes. The child leans into her. I ask if anyone in the truck is bitten. He says no too fast. Victor tells him to show hands, sleeves, neck. The man does it. The woman does too, slow and furious. Not because we are wrong, but because being inspected through glass while your kid watches is a hard thing to forgive. No visible bites. The child has a wet cough. We let them into the vestibule only, the space between doors where the old prize posters are peeling from the wall. Victor gives them a sealed inhaler from the first aid box and 3 chemical hand warmers. We do not let them deeper into the station. That sounds cruel until you have one warm building left. Nolan tells us what happened in Briar Gap while the child uses the inhaler. At first, the fire station looked perfect. Brick building, big doors, generator, cots, coffee urn, diesel tank, radio, men who knew how to organize a room. Families came in before the storm. Then more came after midnight when home furnaces failed. At dawn, infected started appearing along Main Street, slow ones, frozen ones thawing enough to move. Everybody assumed the sound drew them. The firefighters shut the bay lights. No change, they stopped shouting. No change. The infected kept coming to the rear wall, where the generator exhaust blew warm across the alley and the dryer vent steamed from wet coats. Then one of the firefighters moved an idling rescue truck away from the door to use it as a decoy. It worked for 7 minutes. Nolan knows because he watched the wall clock. The infected shifted toward the truck, gathered around the hood and grill, hands tapping the warm metal. People inside cheered. Then the truck ran low, sputtered, and died. The crowd turned back to the building. That detail is important. Warmth can redirect them but not solve them. Heat buys time until fuel, wind, or human attention fails. Nolan says the last thing he saw before leaving was the station captain telling people to move into the cold hose room and shut the interior door. The main hall stayed warm. The people moved into the cold. I ask if I can broadcast that without names. Nolan nods. He asks if we can call ahead to Red School. I say I will try, but I do not lie and tell him someone can take them. The wife, Marcy, asks if we have fuel. Victor says no. That is not fully true. We have fuel for the station generator, but not enough to become a gas stop, not enough to invite every stranded truck, and not enough to survive the week if the county deliveries stop. Marcy understands the lie and hates us for needing it. I would hate us too. They leave after 10 minutes, turning south toward the school roads, because a parent with a coughing child will move toward nurses even when the map says danger. I go back on air and read the first confirmed heat source advisory. I do not wait for the state. I give examples because vague advice kills people. We have a confirmed report from Briar Gap that infected gathered at generator exhaust, dryer vents, idling vehicle engines, and warm exterior walls. A running vehicle placed away from a shelter may draw infected temporarily, but it can fail without warning and redirect movement back toward occupied areas. If you are managing a shelter, identify warm exterior points now. Post watchers at a distance, move sleeping groups away from boiler walls and generator side rooms if space allows. Keep one cold fallback room ready. Do not place children, seniors, or injured persons beside exterior heat points just because those rooms feel better. My voice stays steady until I say children. Then it catches. Not much, but enough. Victor looks up from the emergency log. He has 2 sons in Columbus. Last call from them was 4 days ago. Not because anything definitely happened, but because phones became rare and then rarer. I have a sister in Lansing and an ex-husband in Fort Wayne. Same thing. The map between us is full of closed roads, bad rumors, and places that still broadcast weather but no local voices. We do not talk about leaving, because neither of us has a route that is more real than this station. Also because once you are the voice on the radio, leaving feels different from evacuating. It feels like turning off a room full of people you cannot see. At noon, County Emergency Management finally calls back. The director, Mara Ellison, sounds sick and furious and fully awake for the first time in days. She confirms the state lab has no formal heat attraction model. She also says 3 counties north are seeing the same pattern around emergency shelters and dairy barns. Dairy barns, that one lands hard. Rural counties can lose people quietly, but losing barns changes everything at once. Cows need milking, waterers freeze, ventilation matters. Generators run, animals produce heat. People go out because animals cannot understand an outbreak order. Mara asks if I can broadcast a livestock notice without starting a stampede of farmers into unsafe barns. I almost laugh because there is no way to keep a farmer out of a barn with living animals inside. Still, I read what she sends and soften what needs softening. Livestock owners should avoid entering barns alone. Inspect exterior walls, vents, doors, and exhaust points from a distance before entry. Do not open a barn door if infected are gathered directly outside. If animals are contained and water is flowing, delay non-essential work until daylight and until 2 or more adults can watch from separate points. Move portable heaters away from exterior doors if this can be done safely. Do not bring frozen infected bodies into barns, garages, or mudrooms for disposal. The last line comes from a new report. I ask Mara to repeat it. She does, and her voice goes harder. A family near Arden found a frozen infected person at the edge of a driveway, assumed it was dead, and dragged it into a heated garage to keep scavengers away from the children's view. 20 minutes later it moved. The father was bitten on the forearm through his glove when he tried to force it back outside. The mother shut him in the garage with it because the house door would not latch after the struggle. A neighbor heard the shouting and called it in. No ambulance could reach Arden Road. A deputy marked the house from the road and left instructions by loudspeaker. That is all. I sit with that for 3 breaths I will not describe on air. Then I broadcast it plain. A frozen infected body is not safe. Do not bring an infected body indoors into a garage, barn, shed vehicle, or entryway. Cold may immobilize. Warmth may restore movement. If an infected person is frozen outside, leave it outside. Mark the location from a safe distance. Keep children and animals away. Do not touch exposed skin, clothing near the mouth, blood, saliva, or damaged gloves. If you have already moved one indoors, exit if safe. Close interior doors, block the space, and call for guidance. Do not attempt to handle it alone. The phone board goes quiet after that, not because nobody needs help, because the county is listening. I can feel the silence through the equipment, and I hate that feeling because it makes me imagine every kitchen table, every barn office, every parked truck, every church basement with people staring at a radio and realizing winter did not arrive as rescue. Winter arrived as another test with worse choices. The snow outside the station starts again, lighter now, smaller flakes moving sideways across the lot. Victor checks the generator fuel log and writes numbers he does not like. He says we have 2 days at current load, 3 if we shut down non-essential circuits, more if we go to scheduled broadcasting and let the transmitter cool between emergency blocks. That would save fuel. It would also leave people without a voice for hours. At 1:15 p.m., Sheriff Dane comes through live. He confirms temporary county guidance, heat discipline. That is the phrase he uses, and I know people will hate it. Heat is not comfort anymore. It is a resource and a signal. He asks residents to create interior warm zones instead of heating whole structures when safe, close, unused rooms. Cover windows from inside. Keep at least one cold room or cold entry area between outside doors and occupied space. Move sleeping areas away from chimney walls, dryer vents, generator side walls, and exterior boiler rooms. Reheat heat in short periods if the structure can tolerate it. Watch for pipe freezing. Keep water trickling only if water supply remains stable. Store water before turning heat down. Never block furnace exhaust. Dane adds that false heat zones may be used by organized shelters only. I know why he says organized. He does not want every scared homeowner setting up dangerous rigs in yards. He keeps it general. A running vehicle, heater, or generator, placed away from an occupied building, may draw infected away temporarily. But this is dangerous, fuel-intensive, and requires a watch. Do not attempt improvised devices. Do not create fire hazards. Do not leave decoys unattended. If a decoy fails, infected may return to the occupied structure. He sounds older than he sounded this morning. Every official voice has aged since October. Some voices are gone entirely. At 2 p.m., Red School reports its first controlled cold move. Principal Moran's team shuts the gym heat down for 15 minutes, moves children and seniors into the interior music room, and opens a high window in the old cafeteria just enough to let heat vent toward the far side of the building. It is not elegant. It is not safe in any old-world sense. But the infected near the kitchen loading dock shift slowly toward the cafeteria wall, away from the east gym door. 2 firefighters arrive from a side street on foot and reinforce the gym entrance with cafeteria tables and mop handles through door pulls. They escort 3 hypothermic arrivals inside and turn away 6 adults who can still return to vehicles. I can hear people shouting in the background when Moran calls me. She says some are calling her cruel. She says one man threatened to break the glass if his brother is not admitted. She says she understands him. I put her on air for 30 seconds, not to explain everything, because long explanations become arguments, but to let her say the rule in her own tired voice. We cannot make warm rooms for everyone at once. We are rotating heat. We are protecting children, seniors, and medical cases first. If you can shelter safely where you are, do not come here. If you come here and we cannot admit you, that is not personal, that is capacity. Bring blankets, bring medicine. Do not bring frozen bodies. Do not bring exposed animals. Do not bring anger to the door if you still have a house to return to. After she hangs up, I expect more backlash. I get some. A man from North Barron calls her a coward. A woman from Pike says the church took her brother and Red School should be ashamed. Another caller says nobody has the right to choose who freezes. I let some of it air in short clips because public anger is also information. Then I answer in my own voice, not official voice. Nobody at a shelter is choosing who deserves warmth. They are choosing how many people can survive inside one building without turning it into a beacon big enough to empty the roads. That is ugly. It is still the truth. At 3:15 p.m., a teenage girl named Kira calls from a laundromat in Logan Center. She says her aunt opened it as a warming and drying stop because people came in soaked and one family had a baby wrapped in wet towels. The machines are running on a backup generator in the rear alley. The front windows are covered with taped cardboard, but the dryer vents are along the side wall. She says infected are at the vents. She counts 9, then 13. Then she stops counting. The adults inside are arguing about shutting the machines down because wet clothes can kill people too. Kira keeps her voice low because she does not want her aunt to hear her asking for help. She says the infected do not bang. They stand close to the wall and move their hands when the dryers run. I connect her to Logan Dispatch and stay on the line longer than I should. Kira says one of the washers is making a grinding sound. She says the baby stopped crying after being changed into a dry shirt from the lost and found bin. She says somebody wants to leave through the back, but the generator is there. I tell her not to go near the back. I ask if there is an interior office. She says yes, small, with a bathroom and a broken soda machine. I tell her to tell her aunt to move the baby, seniors, and wettest people into the office and turn off dryers in stages. Not all at once if that causes a rush. Keep washers off. Keep people away from vent walls. Do not open the back door. I hear her repeat it to someone, and then the line cuts. I do not know what happens to Kira for 2 hours. That is how most of this works. People enter the broadcast, become real for a minute, then vanish into static distance, battery failure, or decisions I never get to hear. I keep reading notices. Hasker Township needs insulin refrigeration at the clinic, but cannot run the generator continuously because infected gather near the east wall. Pike Road plows suspended after dusk. Benton Water Department asks residents not to open hydrants for any reason. Volunteers with 4-wheel drive vehicles must check in radio before attempting transport. Do not self-deploy to shelters. Do not block fire lanes with parked vehicles. Do not leave bodies in plow routes if avoidable, but do not attempt removal without trained staff. At 4 p.m., the sky begins to go dull behind the snow. Sunset is still more than an hour away, but winter light fails early under cloud cover. We shift the station to night protocol. That sounds official. It means Victor tapes black contractor bags over the hallway windows, and I turn off the lobby lamp. We leave one red battery lantern on the floor between studios, pointed at the wall. The building temperature drops to 48 degrees. We can see our breath in the hallway, and I almost laugh because I am not supposed to say that in the story of my own life. I say instead that the hallway is cold enough to make paper stiff and fingers clumsy. Victor puts on another coat and tells me the pipes in the front bathroom are probably lost. A call comes from the Benton bus garage. I recognize the dispatcher. Althea Grant. She used to send us parade route updates and lost dog notices. Today her voice is tight with command. The garage took in stranded drivers, 8 adults, 2 children, 1 diabetic man, and 3 county mechanics. The large bay doors are closed. 2 buses inside are being used for sleeping because the building heat failed. Mechanics ran 1 bus engine for warmth, with the bay door cracked for exhaust. Infected gathered outside the cracked door within 20 minutes. When the engine stopped, several remained. When a second bus started on the opposite side of the garage, the infected shifted along the exterior wall toward that side. Althea says the mechanics figured out something useful. The infected follow sustained heat more than short bursts. A bus engine running for 3 minutes did not draw much. 10 minutes did. A portable heater near the side office drew them to that wall after about 12 minutes. Human movement at cold windows did less than expected, unless the room was warm enough to fog the glass. She is careful not to overclaim. I respect that. People under stress love big theories. Althea gives observations, times, limits. She asks me to tell shelters to rotate heat in smaller blocks, keep watch outside if possible, and avoid warming exterior rooms for long periods. I broadcast it with clear sourcing, observation from Benton bus garage, not confirmed statewide. Sustained heat may draw more response than brief heat use. Consider short heating periods, interior rooms, and cold buffer spaces. Do not allow carbon monoxide risk while managing heat. Do not run engines in enclosed spaces without safe ventilation. I repeat carbon monoxide 3 times through the next hour because I know somebody will hear heat danger and make a worse decision. Carbon monoxide is still killing people in the apocalypse. So are falls, bad water, infected cuts, chimney fires, frozen insulin, and men with good intentions taking one more risk in the dark. At 5:22 p.m., Kira from the laundromat calls back. Her aunt is alive. The baby is alive. They shut the dryers down 1 bank at a time and moved everyone into the office and center aisle. The infected stayed near the vent wall for 20 minutes after the machines stopped, then drifted toward the generator noise in the back. A Logan police officer and 2 public works drivers used a running salt truck at the far end of the alley to draw most of them away long enough to move people out the front. The salt truck is now stuck with a dead battery. 1 driver is trapped inside, unbitten, waiting for a second vehicle. Kira says her aunt wants to know if she did the right thing. I tell her yes. I say that on air too. Her aunt did the right thing with bad options. Then the worst call of the day arrives from East Pike. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. A boy says his dad brought his mom inside from the porch because she had been outside all night and looked frozen. He says she had been infected yesterday after a bite at the feed store. The family thought the cold ended it. They wrapped her in a quilt in the mudroom because his dad wanted to bury her after the storm. The boy says she started moving when the room warmed up. He is in the pantry with his little brother. His dad is in the kitchen. He does not know if his dad is hurt. He whispers because his mother is at the pantry door. I signal Victor. He calls sheriff dispatch on the sideline. I keep the boy talking without putting him on air. His name is Owen. He is 13. His brother is 7. The pantry door opens inward, which is bad because he cannot block it from the inside unless he wedges shelves. I tell him to stay low and quiet, not because infected are blind, but because panic makes children kick doors and call names. I ask if there is a window. He says a small one, painted shut. I ask what is on the shelves. He says flour, jars, a mop bucket, potatoes, dog food. I tell him to use the dog food bag and flour sacks at the base of the door, then push the shelving unit if he can do it without knocking jars down. He does. I hear glass clink once. He freezes. The pantry door bumps, not hard enough to dash, reaches a deputy 4 miles away. But snow and roadblocks make 4 miles into maybe 30 minutes. Owen asks if he should open the window. I ask if it leads outside or into an enclosed porch. Outside, I ask if his brother has boots. No, I ask if there are coats in the pantry. No, I tell him not yet. A 7-year-old without boots in 12 degrees might not make a field crossing, and there may be infected near the warm house exterior. That is the kind of choice I was never trained to make. Radio school did not cover children in pantries, frozen mothers, or deciding which danger is slower. The line cuts at 6:08 p.m., not with a scream, with a small electronic tone, battery, network, wire, I do not know. Datch keeps trying. I cannot report it. I cannot say his name. I go back on air and read the frozen body warning again. My voice has less of a person in it for a minute. Victor notices and slides a handwritten note across the console. Say the rule. Do not carry the whole house. I hate him for being right, then I am grateful before the next sentence. I say the rule. Frozen does not mean safe. Cold does not mean ended. Warmth can reactivate infected bodies. Do not bring infected persons indoors. Night comes down hard after 6:30 p.m. The station windows are blacked out. The tower lights blink red above us, because aircraft rules still outlive common sense. And Victor says he cannot turn them off without climbing the service panel outside. We compromise by killing every unnecessary interior light. The building hum changes when circuits go down. I hear the transmitter fan, the far generator, the occasional tick of ice moving in the gutters. The phone board is dimmed to its lowest setting. I keep broadcasting in 30-minute cycles. Advisory, shelter status, road closures, verified reports, call-in triage, repeat. I do not play music. Music feels wrong, and the automation computer has been offline since the power blink at noon. At 7:10 p.m., Victor goes to check the generator. I tell him no, because I am not stupid and neither is he. He says fuel pressure is wobbling. If the generator shuts down without warning, the transmitter drops and the building gets colder fast. He puts on the county radio, a headlamp with red tape over the lens, and his thick gloves. He takes the sidearm, but keeps it in the outer pocket, where it might as well be a brick if he needs it quickly. We both know that. He also takes the long snow rake, which is more useful for pushing something away from a fence without getting close. He exits through the rear service door into the dark. I keep him on the handheld channel while I read. He says the snow is knee-deep in the drift by the shed. He says no visible movement. Then he stops talking for 20 seconds. I do not call his name because sound matters even over radio if he has the volume up. When he comes back, his voice is lower. Tracks, not ours, coming from the drainage field toward the generator shed. Slow steps, dragged toes, 2 or 3 sets, maybe more filled by snow. The generator has been running all day. Warm and steady, 50 yards from us. Good distance, also a marker. I switch from county bulletin to station advisory without explaining why. This station is operating under heat discipline. We are reducing building heat and exterior light. Listeners should review generator placement immediately. If your generator is near your main sleeping room, entrance, barn door, or shelter wall, and if it can be moved safely by trained adults without exposure, consider relocation during daylight only. Do not move equipment at night, unless current placement creates immediate danger. Never refuel a running generator. Keep fuel containers away from heat and flame. Assign a watcher during refuel if infected activity is reported nearby. Victor reaches the shed and finds 3 infected at the far side, near the exhaust outlet. He says they are not moving much. One is kneeling in the snow with both hands against the metal siding. One is standing with its shoulder touching the exhaust pipe guard. The third is down but moving one arm. He does not try to clear them. He goes around the opposite side, shuts the generator load down, checks fuel, and restarts only the transmitter circuit and essential rack power. The building lights flicker as the load drops. The station heater dies completely. The generator sound changes, softer, less full. Victor waits in the dark behind the shed for the infected to react. They do react, slowly. The standing one turns toward the lower sound but stays near the warm metal. The kneeling one does not rise. The one on the ground drags itself closer to the exhaust. Victor says the shed is a problem because it is warmer than the station now. I say good, let it stay the problem. He says only if we do not need to go back out. That is the whole winter in one sentence. Every useful thing is a future trap. He returns at 7:52 p.m. with ice on his eyebrows and no feeling in 2 fingers. We do not warm him fast. That feels cruel too. But he taught winter safety segments for 20 years, wet gloves off, dry gloves on. Warm drink, not hot, no space heater. He sits on the floor in the hallway with his back against the wall and tells me the generator shed has become our false warm zone by accident. The transmitter stays alive. The building gets colder. The infected stay 50 yards away because the shed is easier and warmer. That is the first decision of the night that feels useful in a way I trust. At 8:30 p.m., Sheriff Dane reports the county will attempt false heat zones at 3 shelters. Official language remains cautious. The old fire station in Briar Gap is still occupied, but no longer using the main hall as a warm room. Firefighters placed an idling utility truck at the far end of the municipal lot, watched from the roof, and shut it down before fuel ran out. Then they vented short bursts of heat from the training room window while moving people into the hose storage area. It bought enough time to move 10 people to a neighboring hardware store through the alley. The hardware store has no heat, but it has interior aisles, blankets, and no generator. Some people refuse to leave the warm hall. I understand them. They may die because they stayed warm. That sentence is insane, and now it is public safety. Dane asks me to stop using the phrase decoy, unless I explain the risk every time. I agree, a false heat zone can draw infected away, only while it remains warmer or noisier than the occupied area. It can fail, it can start fires, it can waste fuel. It can attract more infected from farther away. It can strand the person assigned to manage it. It is not a toy and not a miracle. I repeat this on air. I sound strict, almost angry. Good people need the anger pointed at the right place. At 9 p.m., we get a state bulletin that says cold weather infected behavior remains under investigation. It recommends avoiding congregate shelters when possible, maintaining safe heat, and reporting unusual infected movement. It does not say chimneys. It does not say laundromats. It does not say barns. It does not say frozen bodies warming indoors. I read it because it is official. Then I read county guidance because it is useful. If anyone in the state office is listening and wants to be mad at me, the phone lines are open. Nobody calls from the state. A man named Royce calls from a farmhouse near Hasker and says his family is using the basement cold room as sleeping quarters, while the wood stove runs in the kitchen for 15 minutes every hour. He says it is miserable but working. Infected gathered at the kitchen wall around dusk and stayed there after the stove died down. He and his wife hung quilts over the stairwell to hold some heat without warming the exterior wall as much. He asks if that is smart or stupid. I say smart, with the warning that chimney draw, smoke, and carbon monoxide still matter. He says he has a battery carbon monoxide alarm. I ask if it works. He says he tested it yesterday and almost cried when it beeped. I leave that part on air because small working things matter. A woman named Helena reports the opposite. Her neighbor tried to move a generator farther from the house after dark, slipped on ice, and broke his ankle. His sons dragged him back inside while the generator sat halfway between garage and road, running until it quit. Now infected are spread across the yard instead of gathered in one place. She says the family has no way to retrieve the generator or shut it down. I broadcast the lesson with her permission. Do not relocate heavy equipment in darkness, on ice, or without a clear path. A bad move can turn one hazard into several. Wait for daylight unless immediate danger is worse. By 10:15 p.m., I have been on air for 16 hours except bathroom breaks taken with the door open, and Victor standing guard in the hall. The building is at 41 degrees. The coffee in the pot is a black layer under ice crystals because the warmer plate is off. We eat crackers, peanut butter, and the last 2 apples from the staff fridge. The apples have soft spots. Nobody complains. Victor checks the old backup transmitter plan pinned behind the engineering desk. There is a hill site 12 miles north, colder, smaller, with a low-power transmitter used when the main tower gets serviced. It has a block building, a hand pump well that may be frozen, a propane tank that might still have fuel, and no reason for infected to gather unless we give them one. We do not decide to leave then. We do what people do when a decision is too large. We gather facts around it. Fuel here, 2 days if careful, food here, maybe 4 days, bad variety, water, stored jugs, front pipes failing. Heat, almost none unless we increase generator load or repair the blower, infected. At generator shed, unknown count near drainage field, no visible ones at building walls yet, roads. Bad but maybe passable north with the station van if Victor chains up before dawn. Purpose. Main tower reaches more people. Backup hill reaches fewer but still covers the central counties at lower power. Risk. Staying warm enough may pull infected closer. Going cold may keep us alive but reduce broadcast range. There is no perfect choice. There never was. The old world just hid that better. At 11 p.m. the first thump hits the north wall. Not hard. A single contact. Victor raises his head. I stop mid-sentence. Then force myself to finish the road closure because dead air causes more fear than a controlled voice. Another thump. Then a scrape along the cinder block. Not fingernails in a movie way. Cloth, maybe a sleeve, dragging against frozen paint. Victor kills the hallway lantern. I lower my voice without meaning to, then correct it because listeners can hear fear in volume. We check the camera monitor. The north camera is half covered in ice, but the motion light is off because we disabled exterior lights. We see only gray shadow and snow. The north wall is the warmest wall left because the equipment rack sits inside it. Not a fireplace, not a generator, just electronics, fans, and the waste heat of keeping a county connected. That is enough. Another scrape, a second contact closer to the studio window, which is blacked out from inside but still warmer than the air. Victor writes on the pad. Rack heat. I write back. Shut down? He shakes his head. If we shut down the rack, the broadcast drops. If we leave it, the wall stays warm. He points to the backup transmitter plan. Not now, Dawn. I go on air with the hardest advisory yet because now I am not reporting from a safe desk. I am describing the room I am in. Electronics produce heat. Radio rooms, server closets, medical equipment rooms, offices with battery banks, and communication hubs may create warm exterior walls even when building heat is off. If infected activity appears near those walls, move sleeping areas away and reduce non-essential equipment if possible. Do not cut life safety systems without a plan. Do not open exterior doors to inspect sound at night. Use interior barriers. Stay quiet near affected walls. Mark the time and pattern. I wonder how many listeners understand I am talking about us. Some will, maybe all. At 11:30, the north wall has at least 4 infected against it. We can hear separate contacts now. One at the corner near the record archive, one near the studio window, 2 near engineering. They do not strike with force. That makes it worse in a practical way, because panic would be easier to classify. This is patient contact created by heat, not decision. The wall holds, cinder block, no ground-level window except the studio slit, and that is reinforced with old storm glass. But the rear service door is 20 feet away. If they follow warmth around the corner, the door becomes a problem. Victor and I move file cabinets against the inside of the rear hall, not because cabinets stop everything, but because delay matters. We work slowly, no metal banging if we can help it. I keep a pre-recorded weather bed running under my live microphone, a soft station tone we used during severe storms. It gives me 8 seconds here and there to push furniture, answer side calls, or drink water. I hate using production tricks during an outbreak. Then I remember that radio has always been tricks in service of truth. A calm voice is a tool. So is a locked door. So is a lie when a family asks if there is room and there is not. Midnight passes without ceremony. It is technically a new day, but days are administrative now. The infected remain at the north wall. The generator shed still has its own cluster, visible only when Victor checks the rear camera and catches movement near the exhaust blur. The building temperature reaches 38 degrees. My feet are numb enough that I stand while broadcasting to keep from getting stupid. Victor makes me change socks because sweat becomes ice-cold inside boots. He is right. I hate every useful detail. Survival is a list of small humiliations performed before the larger thing can kill you. At 12:40 a.m., Owen's deputy calls. The pantry boys are alive. I put my hand flat on the console and do not speak until the deputy finishes. The father is alive but bitten. He refused transport because there is nowhere to take him and because the road is blocked. He is isolated in the detached tool shed with a radio and 2 blankets. The infected mother is contained in the kitchen. The deputy broke the pantry window from outside and pulled the boys through one at a time, wrapped the younger one in his own coat, and moved both to the cruiser. The cruiser heater drew 2 infected from the neighbor's yard before he could leave. He shut it off and waited in the cold until they slowed enough to drive around. The boys are at a township house now. Not safe, forever safe for tonight. I broadcast only what the family allowed. 2 children rescued after a frozen infected body was brought indoors. The father's condition is withheld. The lesson is not. Do not bring infected indoors. Use windows as exits only when outside conditions, footwear, and visible infected activity allow it. A cold exit can be safer than a warm hallway, but exposure can injure or kill quickly. Crop children before moving. Check hands and feet after cold exposure. Isolate bite victims without cruelty and without denial. I pause before the next sentence and say it because someone needs to. Isolation is not abandonment. Lying about a bite is not love. At 1:30 a.m., the station door handle moves. Very slowly. It is the front door, beyond the vestibule. Victor and I are in the hall when it happens. We both freeze, then step back from the line of sight. The handle lifts, drops, lifts again. Not enough coordination for a person wearing gloves. Maybe. Not enough force for a panicked survivor. Maybe Victor whispers that nobody alive would stand there without knocking after hearing our warnings. Then a voice says help. One word. Low mail. The handle moves again. This is where rules become ugly. Infected do not usually speak in our county reports. Some fresh infected make sounds that contain old words. Some injured people sound wrong from cold. Some desperate people use one word because one word is all that fits. We do not open the door. I call through the inner hall, not close to the glass. Identify yourself. No answer, the handle moves. I say show your hands to the window. No answer. Victor checks the side camera. A figure stands in the entry alcove, head down, one arm hanging, one arm at the handle. Snow has gathered on its shoulders. The alcove is slightly warmer than the open lot, because heat leaks through the front wall. Of course it is. The figure says help again, but the mouth does not move in time with the word, or the camera delay makes it look wrong. I do not know. We still do not open. Victor uses the intercom speaker, volume low, step back from the door, show both hands. The figure presses closer. Its forehead touches the glass. There is a dark smear near the mouth, but in red camera light everything looks dark. Victor shuts the intercom off. We stand there listening to the handle until the movement stops. The figure remains in the alcove because the building leaks heat around the door. At 2 a.m., another one joins it. I return to the microphone and update the entrance advisory. Warm entry alcoves, vestibules, glass doors, mailrooms, and mudrooms may attract infected in freezing weather. Do not allow heat to leak into exterior entry spaces if avoidable. Use interior curtains, blankets, or temporary barriers to create a cold buffer near entrances. Do not open doors to single-word calls unless identity can be confirmed. Ask for name, location, visible hand check, and a known detail if possible. Injured survivors may fail to answer, so this rule is painful. It is still necessary. If you deny entry to a possible survivor, report the location and continue observation if safe. I hear the cruelty in my own instruction. I also hear the truth. A door is not morality. A door is a boundary between one danger and another. People who have not stood behind one at 2 a.m. with a station full of public responsibility can judge that later if enough people remain to judge anything. At 3:10 a.m. the county line drops. Not all of it, enough. The phone board loses Logan Center, Pike South, and the State Bridge. The radio relay still works, but incoming calls shrink to local landlines and scattered mobile signals. Snow load has taken a line somewhere, or a switching office lost heat, or a generator failed and drew infected to the wrong door. There are too many ways for connection to die now. I switch to repeated advisories and ask listeners with working radios to relay on community channels where trained operators still exist. Use plain language. Do not spread unconfirmed rumors. Give location, time, condition, and need. Do not use heat source claims to accuse neighbors of attracting infected unless you have direct observation. That last part matters. Fear wants a person to blame. At 4 a.m., Victor says we leave at first light. He does not ask. I do not argue. The station is no longer a neutral point. It is a warm machine in a cold field, and the infected have begun to map it in the only way available to them. North wall, front alcove, generator shed. 3 separate warm points. 3 gatherings. If we stay, we will spend fuel keeping the transmitter alive until one door fails. One window cracks, or one of us makes a cold, stupid mistake. The backup hillside is worse equipment and lower reach, but it is colder and simpler. We can run short broadcast windows. We can place the generator downhill from the block building. We can keep the building itself close to freezing and use body heat only inside sleeping bags between live segments. It sounds awful. It sounds viable. We begin packing between advisories. Not everything. That is another old-world reflex that has to die. We take the portable mixer, 2 microphones, the field transmitter interface, paper county maps, the current emergency log, batteries, first aid kit, water jugs, crackers, peanut butter, hand tools, tape, wire, 2 blankets, dry socks, the sidearm, and the station license folder. Because Victor says if we are going to break half the broadcast rules, we may as well carry proof we once respected them. We leave the framed awards. We leave the pledge mugs. We leave the vinyl records. We leave the wall of staff photos from years when the biggest crisis was a failed fundraiser. At 5 a.m., I tell the county what we are doing without giving the exact route. WNBR will transition to backup transmission after sunrise due to infected activity around the main facility. Expect intermittent signal loss between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. Continue heat discipline, continue local relay. If this frequency drops, check 91.7 again at the top and bottom of each hour. If you maintain a community radio, record this guidance and repeat it with your own verified local updates. Do not travel to the WNBR main station. Do not approach the Tower Road. The site is not a shelter, not a fuel point, and not safe. That last line hurts because I know Nolan and Marcy might have thought of coming back if Red School turned them away. I say it again, the site is not safe. My job is not to sound generous. My job is to keep a bad location from becoming worse. At 6:15 a.m., the horizon lightens behind cloud. The infected at the front alcove are still there. 3 now, 1 in a postal coat, 1 in pajamas under a winter jacket. 1 I cannot identify because its back is turned and snow has covered the shoulders. The north wall has 5 visible from the side camera. The generator shed has at least 4. They are slow, stiff, and quiet. If the weather warmed by 20 degrees, we would already be trapped. Cold is helping. Cold is also letting us pretend we have time. Both are true. Victor warms the station van for exactly 4 minutes, with the garage door open and the exhaust pointed out. 4 minutes is not enough to make the cab comfortable. It is enough to test the battery and clear the windshield. The sound draws movement from the front alcove, but slowly, confused by the still warm door. I broadcast while he loads. My hands shake from cold, not fear, or maybe both, and I do not care which. I read the morning weather. 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind northwest at 14 miles per hour. Additional snow likely before noon. I read the shelter list with changes. Red School restricted, Luke's restricted. Briar Gap relocated partially to hardware store. Logan laundromat closed. Benton bus garage active but not accepting arrivals. I read the body warning, the generator warning, the chimney warning, the livestock warning. Before I sign off the main station, I say something I did not plan. Yesterday morning, many of us believed winter might end this. It has not ended it. It has slowed movement and given us chances we did not have in warmer weather. It has also shown us a rule we did not understand. Heat tells the infected where people are hiding. Smoke, exhaust, warm walls, idling engines, laundry vents, barns, shelters, radio rooms. We need heat to live, and now we have to treat heat as something visible. Use it carefully. Hoe it when you can, meave it when you must. Share it only in ways that do not destroy the place sharing it. Do not let shame push you into a crowded warm room that cannot hold you. Do not let pride keep you in a cold house that is already failing. Make the choice in front of you, not the one you wish you had. At 7:02 a.m. we cut main power, switch the transmitter to recorded loop, and move to the rear door. The loop will run as long as the rack holds. Backup transition, heat discipline, no travel to station. Victor opens the rear interior door and listens. No movement right outside. The generator shed cluster remains near the exhaust. The rear path is drifted but usable. We step into cold that feels clean only because it is dangerous in a way I understand. The van waits 20 yards away with the driver door open. We do not run. Running falls, falling ends plans. Victor goes first with the snow rake. I follow with the gear bag and maps under my coat. Halfway to the van, one of the infected at the generator shed turns, not fast. It hears the crunch or senses our heat or notices movement. I do not know. It pulls away from the shed with its arms slightly raised. The others remain at the warm metal. This is the advantage and the horror together. 1 is manageable. 4 would not be. Victor reaches the van and starts it. The engine catches, loud in the morning. Every infected near the station responds in some degree. Heads turn, bodies shift. The front alcove group begins to move along the building line. The north wall group drags toward the sound. The generator shed cluster splits. I climb in, slam the door, then hate myself for the sound, even though quiet is gone now. Victor keeps the heater off. The windshield fogs from our bodies, and he wipes a circle with his glove. We drive without headlights until the access road bends behind the snowbank. The van slips once near the tower gate, and for 1 second the rear wheels spin. One infected is 20 yards behind us, then 25, then lost in blowing snow. I look back at the station. It sits low under the white roof, black windows, tower light blinking red in the morning. The building is not dead. That matters to me in a stupid way. Then the access road drops and I cannot see it. The road north is worse than the reports. Drifts cover both lanes in open stretches. Abandoned cars sit at angles where people tried to turn around during the first storm and never returned to retrieve them. Victor drives slow, using the plow ridges as guides when the pavement disappears. We pass a farmhouse with smoke from the chimney, and 6 infected standing under the eaves, where the kitchen wall must be warm. No one waves from the windows. We do not stop because 2 people with a van and a broadcast kit cannot solve a surrounded farmhouse by pulling into its drive. That is the kind of truth that strips something from you each time. At the mill bridge, we see snow tracks that explain more than any caller could. Infected tracks are not normal footprints, not because of monster reasons, because infected do not protect balance or avoid obstacles. Drag marks cross tire ruts. Bare patches show where one fell and crawled. Several tracks move from a frozen ditch toward a culvert, where warmer water must have run yesterday. Then from the culvert toward the road where cars idled. Heat makes lines across snow. Human survival makes lines too, firewood paths, barn paths, house paths after plumbing fails, generator paths. Every line can be read by anything that follows warmth, sound, scent, or repetition. We reach the backup hill road at 8:40 a.m. The gate is locked and half buried. Victor cuts the chain with bolt cutters from the van because he has the key somewhere and cannot feel it through gloves. He apologizes to the station board out loud. I tell him the board can send us a stern email when civilization returns. He does not laugh, but his shoulders move once. The hillside road is steep, narrow, and shaded by pine. Snow is thinner under the trees. That helps until it does not. The van slides sideways near the top and kisses a ditch hard enough to crack the plastic bumper. We unload there and carry the gear the last quarter mile. The hillside block building is colder inside than outside at first because concrete stores the night. That is good, that is terrible. Both again. No infected visible. No tracks near the door except deer and 1 set of old boot prints from before the storm. Likely Victor's last maintenance trip. The propane tank gauge is low but not empty. The hand pump is frozen at the handle. The backup transmitter rack powers up on battery first. Then generator once. Victor checks the line and curses at a mouse nest. We place the portable generator downhill behind a rock cut, farther from the building than convenient. The exhaust points away into the trees. The cable barely reaches. Good. Convenience is suspect now. We do not heat the building. Not at first. We hang 1 blanket behind the equipment rack to keep its waste heat from warming the exterior wall too much, leaving airspace so nothing overheats. Victor watches the temperature gauge with the focus of a man diffusing a problem nobody wrote a manual for. I set the microphone on a folding table, tape the county map to the wall, and write a new log sheet with numb fingers. At 9:32 a.m., WNBR returns at reduced power from the North Hill backup transmitter. My voice sounds thinner in the headphones. The signal meter wobbles. It is enough. This is WNBR 91.7, backup transmission. If you can hear this, relay only verified information. Main facility is offline due to infected activity around heat-producing equipment. We are broadcasting from a colder site with limited power. Signal may fade. Guidance remains unchanged. Winter slows infected movement. Winter can immobilize infected bodies. Warmth can restore movement and draw infected toward occupied structures, exhaust, chimneys, generators, vehicles, barns, laundromats, shelters, and equipment rooms. A frozen infected body is not safe. Heat is necessary. Heat is also information. Use it with discipline. Calls come in slowly as our reduced signal finds radios and people find us back. Red School survived the night with rotating heat and a cold gym. 2 seniors were moved to a farmhouse at dawn after watchers cleared a side path. Briar Gap lost the main fire station hall but saved most of the shelter group by moving into the hardware store and an unheated municipal records room. Logan Center recovered the salt truck driver with frostbite and no bite. Carl Mendez is stable, angry and asking about his plow. Kira's aunt reopened the laundromat only as a dry clothing exchange. No machines running. Generator off except scheduled 10-minute blocks with watchers. Owen and his brother are with relatives. His father's status is not given. Good news now comes with missing pieces. I read it anyway. People need to know that bad choices can be corrected, that ugly choices can still save lives, that not every door becomes a grave. I also read the deaths and suspected losses when families permit it. A man in Arden, 2 at a dairy barn near the county line, 1 volunteer at Briar Gap, name withheld pending family notice, an unknown person at the WNBR main entrance. Possible infected, do not approach. I pause after that one. I owe the possible person something, but not enough to lie. Unknown means unknown. By noon, the hillside remains quiet. The generator downhill draws no visible movement, but Victor says give it time. Heat writes slowly in cold air. We run the transmitter in scheduled blocks now. Top of the hour, bottom of the hour. Emergency interrupts when calls make it through. Between blocks, we shut down non-essential gear and sit in the cold with our coats zipped to our chins. We eat crackers and share water that has a thin skin of ice at the bottleneck. It is miserable, and I am grateful for every part of it because misery without immediate attack has become a kind of wealth. During the 1 p.m. block, Mara Ellison from County Emergency Management reaches us and asks for a county-wide phrase everyone can remember. Not a slogan, a rule, something short enough for handwritten signs at shelters. I think of all the phrases that sound good and fail under pressure. Stay cold, stay alive is false. Heat kills is false. Hide your heat is useful but incomplete because people also need to share warmth or die separately. Victor, half asleep on a coil of cable, says make heat earn its keep. I almost use it, then decide it sounds clever in a way that could get somebody killed. I write the rule on the back of a transmitter manual and read it aloud. Warm the people, not the walls. Run heat in the smallest safe interior space. Keep exterior rooms colder when possible. Use short heating periods with a watch. Keep exhaust safe and away from entrances, hoe light. Muffle sound only if ventilation remains safe. Never bring frozen infected inside. Never sleep beside the heat source without a watcher. Never let a shelter become warm everywhere at once, unless it has security, exits, and a plan for what gathers outside. Mara says that will do. I know it will not do enough. Nothing does enough. But by 2 p.m., people begin repeating it back. Warm the people, not the walls. A church in Pike moves cots away from the foundation wall and uses the center aisle for sleeping. A farmhouse family builds a blanket room around the dining table, away from windows, and lets the stove die down between burns. A clinic moves medicine storage to an interior closet and runs the generator in watched intervals. A dairy crew cuts barn tasks into pairs and posts 1 watcher on the hayloft window. Not because a watcher stops infected, but because early warning turns panic into seconds, and seconds matter. At 3 p.m., the temperature rises to 19 degrees Fahrenheit. That should feel better, it does not. Reports show more movement in open areas as frozen infected loosen. Owns marked at fences begin shifting again. Ditch bodies crawl toward road noise. The fairground fence group breaks free from ice and moves toward the maintenance building where a heater had been running to protect water lines. Winter does not stay one thing for a whole day. Sun, wind, cloud cover, body heat, engines, walls, all of it changes the map hour by hour. I add that to the advisory, recheck marked frozen infected after temperature changes. A safe distance at dawn may not be safe in the afternoon. Near 4 p.m., Victor steps outside to check the generator from the ridge with binoculars. He does not go down to it. He has learned. He sees 2 infected in the tree line below the exhaust path, standing apart, oriented toward the rock cut. Too far to threaten us now. Close enough to prove the rule followed us. We knew it would. The difference is the generator is not attached to our door. It is not warming our wall. It is a problem placed away from our bodies, and that is the best winter gives. I report it without our exact site details. Even remote generators can attract infected over time. Plea them with failure in mind. Ask where infected will stand if the generator draws them. Ask where people will be when refueling is needed. Ask what happens when fuel runs out. Ask what path remains if the warm point becomes blocked. Do not let equipment become the center of your shelter. You are the shelter. The equipment is expendable if losing it does not immediately cost lives. At 5:30 p.m., I receive a handwritten relay from a township runner who leaves the note in a plastic bag tied to the outer fence and backs away before Victor retrieves it. The note is from Principal Morin. Red School is still holding. She has written in block letters because her hands must be tired. She says children are sleeping in the music room under coats. The gym is cold, the boiler runs in short cycles, and the infected stay mostly near the cafeteria vent now. She says one parent apologized for shouting. She says another left angry and returned with firewood instead of more anger. She says, "Tell the lady on the radio we are still here." I read that line on air and have to stop for water after. The second night starts with fewer illusions. That helps, it also makes everyone sound older. Callers no longer ask if winter will save us. They ask how long to run a stove before the wall warms. They ask how to move an elderly father into an interior room without letting the bedroom pipes freeze. They ask if livestock warmth can pull infected through a pasture fence. They ask if a body frozen in a car is safe to leave until spring. They ask what to do when a spouse is bitten, and it is below zero outside and the shed has no heat. They ask questions with no clean answer, and I give the best ugly answer available. Isolate without direct contact, use barriers. Keep the person warm only if uninfected. If infected, do not create a warm enclosed space attached to the living area. Say goodbye through a door if that is all safety allows. I do not say it gently enough. I do not know how. At 7 p.m., the infected below our generator increased to 4. At 8:05, at 9, one wanders away when the generator cycles down, then returns when it starts again. Victor sketches positions on the map margin. He is not a scientist. I am not a scientist. Our county has become a field notebook because nobody with a clean lab can get here. We record what we see, what time it happens, what the temperature is, what heat source is running, what people did, what failed, what worked once and might not work twice. I tell listeners to do the same if safe. Fraud observations. Do not invent conclusions. The difference may save someone. At 10 p.m., a ham operator from outside our main range relays a message from 3 counties west. Same pattern. Greenhouse heaters, fire station generators, semi-trucks idling at a distribution center, a hospital loading bay where ambulances kept engines running. He says the city stations are arguing about whether heat or carbon dioxide is the trigger. I tell him we will not settle that tonight. For practical purposes, sustained heat and exhaust draw risk. That is enough for a household deciding where to sleep. I realize then that the first winter will be remembered wrong if anyone is left to remember it. People will say, the cold saved us or the cold betrayed us, depending on who survived and where. Both versions are too simple. The cold slowed the infected enough for us to see patterns. It froze some in place and gave deputies time to mark roads. It also forced people into warm rooms, running engines, boiler halls, laundromats, barns, and shelters. It took the private fact of being alive and pushed it out through chimneys and vents. It made survival visible. I do not say all of that on air because it sounds too shaped, and shaped thoughts can become decorative if a person is not careful. I say the useful part. Winter is not a cure. Winter is a change in conditions. Keep learning. Keep reporting. Keep your rules humble. Challenge them when the facts change. At midnight, Victor sleeps for 40 minutes on the floor under the table, wrapped in a blanket with his boots still on. I keep the station alive in short bursts. Outside, the generator cycles. Downhill, infected wait near warmth that is not us. My hands are cracked at the knuckles. The log pages curl in the cold. At 12:30 a.m., I close the broadcast block with the rule again. This is WNBR 91.7. Backup transmission. If you are hearing this in a warm room, look at what that room touches. If it touches an outside wall, a vent, a chimney, a garage, a barn door, a generator line, or a window, think before you sleep there. Warm the people, not the walls. Keep a cold buffer. Watch the snow. Tracks tell the truth before voices do. Do not bring frozen infected inside. Do not assume stillness means safety. Do not waste heat on empty rooms. Do not waste people trying to defend a room that should have been cold. I let the carrier drop after the sign-off and sit in the sudden quiet with one glove off, pressing my bare fingers around the cup of lukewarm water. Victor left near the rack. It is the warmest thing in the building, besides the equipment, and I do not put it near the wall. That is how small the rules have become. That is how real. A cup, a wall, a sleeping man, a generator placed downhill, a county waiting for the next half hour of signal. Winter did not save us. It taught the infected where humans hide. Now we are learning how to hide the fact that we are still alive.